Welcome to Homeschool Broadcast, your go-to show to boost your confidence and motivation. I'm Jenny Provance, an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster turned homeschool mom. I'm also a doctoral student in education, and I love sharing what I'm learning from my research with you. Here, I'll share stories, ideas, practical tips, and inspiration to keep you going strong. Let's rewind back a few years to a moment that still feels so vivid to me. Sitting on the couch next to my husband, crying and wondering why it felt so wrong to be sending our child to kindergarten. So I wasn't homeschooled. In fact, I loved school, and I still love school. I mean, right now, I'm basically in 18th grade. So after going to school for, 12, 13 years, then I got a bachelor's, a master's, and now I'm working on my doctorate. I just love school. I was one of those intense kids, always pushing myself, always striving to get ahead, and never taking breaks. I didn't even realize how much anxiety I carried back then. The constant pressure I put on myself to perform was just normal for me. So as someone who loved school, for the most part, you'd think that homeschooling wouldn't really be on my radar, right? But even before I became a mom, the idea would pop into my head now and then. They were almost like little nudges. But still, it just felt unrealistic. In fact, it felt kind of radical. I didn't know anyone close by who homeschooled. Aside from a couple distant relatives, there was no one around me doing it. Everyone around us followed the traditional path. They were doing public school or charter school. It was the default. But when our oldest was about to start kindergarten, something just didn't feel right. Well, first of all, when I was on the computer to enroll him, the school district asked me what gender my 5-year-old identified as. I'm sorry, what? So then we were asked to bring him to some sort of pre-assessment at the school, and the teachers led him away into this private room, and they closed the door behind him. And as I sat outside the room, I felt totally overwhelmed with paperwork and bus schedules and just visions of the endless school pickup line. And then it hit me, that old feeling, the anxiety about waking up early to catch the bus, about studying for tests, the cliques, the friend groups, and the mountains of homework. I just kept having this flashback of a feeling of so much pressure. So he came back out of this assessment thing, and like a lot of kids, when I asked him what they did in there, he just shrugged and said, I don't know. And that just didn't sit well with me. I didn't like that I had no clue what my 5-year-old had just done for the past 30 minutes, that it felt so secretive. And suddenly the realization hit me, do I really want to not know what he's doing for 35 hours a week? That's more than 1,000 hours a year, or even 15,000 hours of his childhood away from us. That night, I sat on the couch with my husband and I was just crying. And I remember after that, I prayed and I asked God to please show me what our other options were. And he did. I started listening to audiobooks and podcasts about homeschooling. I talked to my friend Casey at Red Brick Schoolhouse on Instagram, and she recommended I read the book Hold On to Your Kids by Dr. Gordon Neufeld. So then I watched the film The Homeschool Awakening by Kirk Cameron, and honestly, I cried through the whole thing. And then these red flags in the school system started to pop up everywhere. You might want to cover your little kids' ears right now, but I felt like I could not stop seeing news stories about the explicit and pornographic books in my state and school district, and not to mention the news stories about inappropriate relations between teachers and students. And then when I was looking at a school's website, it had photos of little tiny first graders just casually searching Google on their own Chromebooks. And that just bothered me a lot. We want our kids to be tech savvy, but kids at school are just spending so much time on Chromebooks, and I have a problem with that. We are trying to help our kids to wire their brains to avoid the addiction caused by dopamine hits from screens. We're trying to keep them from being exposed to things too young, and we're trying to protect and prolong their childhoods as long as we possibly can. We just don't want them to grow up too fast. At first, my husband wasn't so sure about this homeschool thing. He mostly loved his school experience too. It was sports and extracurriculars. He worried that our kids would miss out, that they'd be at a disadvantage if we homeschooled. And I worried about that too. But then something shifted. I remember we went out on an anniversary date for breakfast, and we had this incredible French toast with strawberries and whipped cream, just as a side note. And he shared that he'd seen on a social media post from an old teacher friend who said that she was quitting the classroom because of what was happening in schools. And that opened his eyes. And when he said to me that he was starting to get more comfortable with the idea of homeschooling, I told him that that was one of the hottest things he had ever said. So we prayed together, and God confirmed to us this was the path we needed to take. When my kids were still in preschool, we kind of started practicing homeschool just to kind of get in the rhythm and get our kids comfortable and used to it, so it wasn't really like a shock or a change to any of us. So once kindergarten started, we didn't dive into full-time homeschool right away. We did a part-time charter school that allowed our son to attend a day or two a week, and he would do, I'm talking these incredible hands-on activities like space missions and farming. And then he went to a nature kindergarten class for a few hours once a week. And then the rest of the week, we home educated with curriculum that we chose ourselves and went on lots of field trips. I just told him, I'm like, this is the most amazing kindergarten experience I've ever heard of. Interestingly, I spoke with some of the other moms in our neighborhood who had decided to go forward and send their kids to the local traditional public school. Again, you might want to pause or cover your kids' ears if you have little ones nearby, but they told me that just in the first week of school, one of their kids got strangled by another kid, and also they were getting letters home from school about the upcoming sex education class for the kindergartners. And that was in the first week of school. Not to mention, they had lots of homework. So these moms said that they were reconsidering homeschooling after all. Later, we moved to another state and went more into the homeschooling full-time kind of a thing. We found this amazing homeschool co-op that has been a perfect fit for our family. Our kids attend super fun weekly classes. They have lots of friends. We also go to a homeschool PE class. We have music class. We play sports, field trips, and church activities. We travel whenever we feel like it. Our life is definitely not perfect, but I can honestly say that our kids are having an amazing childhood, in my opinion. And also, my husband is even more on board than I am sometimes with this homeschooling thing. I mean, he is all in. It's very attractive. We'll talk more about getting your spouse on board in a future episode. So why did I start this podcast show? God inspired me to connect my broadcasting background with my love and passion for homeschool and education. Homeschool broadcast is for those who are already convinced, but also for those who are just curious about homeschool and those who are cautiously considering. It's not for debating the value of homeschooling. I'm just not here for that. This show is to educate, encourage, and hopefully entertain you a little bit. Here's what I'm noticing. There are so many parents who feel drawn to homeschool, but they're nervous about it. They don't know where to start. They need a boost of confidence. They don't know anyone who does it. And that's why I'm here. I want to give you that confidence, and I want to be your homeschool friend. Now, if you're already homeschooling and you believe in spreading the goodness of homeschooling, would you please help me grow this movement? Here's how you can help. Subscribe to this show wherever you listen, iTunes, Spotify, and then leave a 5-star review. That helps others to find the show. I will be so appreciative. Coming up in the next episode, the topic is, but what about socialization? We're going to tackle one of the biggest objections to homeschooling, and you're going to want to be here for it. It's something I am maybe overly passionate about. Click subscribe to never miss an episode. Thanks for joining me today on Homeschool Broadcast. I'm Jenny Provance, signing off.